Have you ever felt like the power you seek could be your downfall? Summary of the book, Shadows of the Empire, by Steve Perry. Part 1. The Rise of Xizor. The Galactic Empire, under the yoke of Emperor Palpatine, stands on the brink of collapse, a vast structure held together by fear, betrayal, and the relentless manipulation of its leader. Withered in appearance and amber eyes radiating the corruption of the dark side, Palpatine weaves the threads of power from the shadows, playing with the lives and deaths of millions across the galaxy like a cruel puppet master. His plan to destroy the Jedi is underway, but he knows that any distraction could undermine his control. Among the pawns on this dark chessboard, Prince Xizor stands out. From the depths of organized crime, Xizor has built Black Sun, the most vast and feared criminal organization in the galaxy. A cold-blooded and brutal strategist, Xizor controls smuggling, murder, and conspiracy with surgical precision. His near-perfect face and refined manner belie his true nature, that of a predator who craves only more power. Yet Xizor is not content to remain a mere subordinate. From his luxurious fortress on Coruscant, he dedicates himself to an even more ambitious task: overthrowing Darth Vader and taking his place as the Emperor's right-hand man. Xizor moves stealthily through the complex web of politics of the Empire, firmly convinced that only wholesale betrayal will give him the power he craves. Meanwhile, amidst this maelstrom of Imperial conspiracies, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Lando Calrissian, and Chewbacca face a desperate mission: to free Han Solo, frozen in carbonite, from the clutches of the infamous bounty hunter Boba Fett. Han's fate hangs in the balance, caught between negotiations and betrayal, as he is transported to Tatooine to be handed over to the ruthless Jabba the Hutt. But Han's rescue is not the only burden that falls on Luke's shoulders. The shadow of destiny haunts him, heavier than ever. As the Force grows within him, Luke faces the latent fear of succumbing to the dark side, the constant threat of becoming what he fears most: a twisted version of his own father, Darth Vader. The revelation of his kinship to Vader has shaken him to his core, forcing him to question every decision, every move. How to avoid destiny if your own blood drags you towards it. Meanwhile, Prince Xizor continues to weave his own plans. He has sensed in Luke Skywalker not only a threat to the Empire, but an opportunity. For Xizor, Skywalker is the key that can unlock the doors to absolute power. If he can eliminate Luke, the Emperor will see him as an indispensable ally, winning his favor and displacing Darth Vader from his inner circle. But Xizor knows he cannot risk a direct attack. His power lies in the shadows, in subtle manipulations, in invisible poisons, so he begins to set a trap. Luring Skywalker to Coruscant, into the very heart of Black Sun, is his first move. Xizor is used to playing on the edge, and he is willing to put everything at risk to achieve his goal: total dominance. For Luke and his companions, every step toward Han is a fight against time and the dark forces that close in on them. Lando and Chewbacca coordinate a desperate mission, while Leia struggles with her own uncertainty and anguish. She knows that Han is not just a friend, but a crucial piece in the war to come. But her feelings for him also cloud her judgment, and the weight of responsibility weighs on her. Meanwhile, Luke, burdened by the legacy of the Jedi and the expectations of the Rebel Alliance, is torn between light and dark, between saving his friend or losing himself in the process. The galaxy is on the brink of irreversible change. Tensions between the Empire and the Rebellion have reached a point of no return, and all-out war seems imminent. Yet in the shadows of Coruscant, the real danger comes not from soldiers or lightsabers, but from the intrigues and betrayals that Xizor and the Emperor quietly plot. As Darth Vader, oblivious to the magnitude of the betrayal brewing around him, pursues his own plans to lure Luke to the dark side, the fate of the galaxy becomes more uncertain than ever. Palpatine, Vader, and Xizor, three titans of the dark side, are on an inevitable collision course, with Luke Skywalker at the center of the storm. Part 2. Trap on Coruscant. Skywalker's bait. Conflict erupts when Xizor, ever alert to any sign of vulnerability within the Empire, learns of Luke Skywalker's importance to Emperor Palpatine. The sharp mind of the Black Sun Prince sees in the young Skywalker a risk he cannot afford to ignore. Palpatine, never one to do anything without a calculated reason, has zeroed in on Luke's potential, a young man who could become a Jedi, and in the process, the Empire's most dangerous enemy. But he could also be molded into a tool, a warrior for the dark side, an ultimate weapon. Xizor understands that the Emperor's interest in Luke is a danger to his own rise. Xizor knows that Palpatine is playing the long game, always vying for total control of the galaxy through his most powerful pawns, and among them, Darth Vader remains the closest. But if Xizor succeeds in eliminating Luke Skywalker, he could put himself in the perfect position to unseat Vader, winning the Emperor's favor. His calculating instincts do not abandon him, and he embarks on a meticulous plan to lure Skywalker into a trap, one where he would not only be defenseless, but where he could be destroyed or manipulated at will. For this, Xizor turns to Guri, his deadly android assassin. Designed to be perfect in every way, Guri is more than just a combatant. Her infiltration skills are unmatched, and with her cold, calculating nature, Guri can move through rebel circles without raising suspicion. The android infiltrates the Alliance's movements, accurately tracking the contacts Skywalker and his allies are using to find Han Solo. In doing so, she ensures that Luke lands directly in Xizor's hands, leading him right into the trap on Coruscant, the galaxy's rotting capital, where the Dark Prince has complete control of his territory. Meanwhile, Leia Organa, Lando Calrissian, and Chewbacca find themselves in a race against time. Their friend Han Solo is frozen in carbonite, and Boba Fett, the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter, is transporting him to the desert of Tatooine, where Jabba the Hutt is waiting for his new prize. They know that if they can't stop Fett before he hands Han over, their chances of rescuing him will dramatically diminish. But the threat of Xizor and his vast criminal network begins to stand in their way, embroiling them in a conflict far more complex and dangerous than they ever expected. Leia soon discovers that Xizor is not simply an uneasy ally of the Empire, but a ruthless force who does not hesitate to destroy anything that stands in his way. Xizor, with his insatiable ambitions, is more than an adversary. He controls a vast network of influence, and where the Empire fails in control and precision, Black Sun thrives. Leia senses that the criminal organization's movements are too synchronized to be coincidence, and her suspicions are soon confirmed. Xizor's criminal network is deeply intertwined with the movements of the Empire, and she and her allies are being drawn into a dangerous power game from which it is difficult to escape. Amidst all this chaos, Luke Skywalker senses a disturbance in the Force. It's subtle at first, but as his efforts to locate Han progress, the darkness he senses becomes more tangible, more menacing. Something is following him, an invisible shadow that seems to watch his every move. He doesn't know exactly where the threat is coming from, but he's certain it's constantly stalking him. This is an enemy unlike any he's faced before. It's not the Empire outright. It's not Darth Vader, but it feels just as dark, just as deadly. What Luke doesn't know is that he's walking right into a trap. Xizor has been watching him, studying his every step, waiting for the exact moment to close the loop. While Luke focuses on saving his friend, the Dark Prince spins his web, confident that when the time comes, Skywalker will be his. The stakes are far greater than Luke can imagine, and his fate could be sealed before he even realizes it. The pieces are in motion. The rebellion struggles to hold together, while the Empire watches from above, unaware that within its ranks, a more cunning enemy is plotting its own betrayal. Part 3. The Labyrinth of Death. The Fall of Heroes. Luke Skywalker had followed every lead with fierce determination, moving through ever darker shadows, unaware that he was about to walk into Xizor's perfect trap. The pieces the Dark Prince had silently moved for weeks were beginning to fall into place. Now, the young Jedi was exactly where Xizor wanted him, the heart of Black Sun's palace, an impenetrable fortress that, at first glance, looked like a monument to opulence, but within it hid a lethal network of mercenaries and assassins. The atmosphere of the palace felt heavy, charged with a tension that Luke sensed with every fiber of his being. The stone walls seemed to draw closer, closing in like the bars of an invisible cell. With every step he took, Luke felt the darkness enveloping him, the Force vibrating in strange, ominous ways, as if a gigantic shadow were watching him from the depths of the galaxy. He was not alone, of course. Leia and Chewbacca were with him, their presence a comfort amidst the growing sense of danger. But even together, the danger they faced seemed insurmountable. Every corner of the palace was crawling with bounty hunters, mercenaries willing to do anything for Xizor's promises of wealth and power. Assassin droids patrolled the halls like mechanical hunters, under strict orders not to let any intruder leave alive. Enemies were everywhere, and Luke knew that any mistake could be his last. The Force alerted him to every impending danger, but the odds against him were stacked like an insurmountable mountain. Xizor, ever the calculating one, watched from atop his throne, pleased to see Luke walk right into his trap. The Dark Prince knew that if Skywalker died in his palace, the rebellion would lose its greatest hope. What's more, if he succeeded in eliminating Luke, the Emperor would reward him with a position of untold power. Xizor dreamed of displacing Darth Vader, of becoming the man who ruled the galaxy from the shadows, under the favor of Palpatine himself. And for that, he only needed Luke not to make it out alive. But Xizor didn't limit himself to brute force. He knew that the real battle was fought in the mind, and his attacks weren't just directed at Luke. Leia was another crucial target in his strategy. The Dark Prince, with his manipulative pheromones, sought to break the princess's will, sowing doubt in her mind, clouding her emotions, all in order to make her doubt herself, her friends. Leia was strong, but even she was beginning to notice how her thoughts were becoming confused, how the walls of her mind were shaking under Xizor's influence. For Leia, the danger was both physical and psychological. She knew that if she gave in, she would betray her friends without even realizing it. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the galaxy, Darth Vader, ever attuned to the disturbances of the Force, sensed something was amiss. The shadows of conflict stirred around him, and a threat he could not ignore was beginning to take shape. But it was not just Luke who was in danger. Vader also sensed that Xizor was moving pieces against him. The Dark Prince had underestimated the Dark Lord of the Sith, believing he could manipulate the situation to his advantage. But that was not something Vader could tolerate. Resentment bubbled within him, and the dark force within him grew in intensity. Though he knew his son was in danger, he also recognized that Xizor had crossed a line, and a reckoning between them was inevitable. Inside the palace, the pressure on Luke, Leia, and Chewbacca grew with every second. Every hallway, every room was filled with traps, enemies lurking in the shadows, and an atmosphere charged with impending doom. Luke could sense that time was running out, that he was about to face a test that would define not only his fate, but that of the rebellion. Part 4. The Battle in the Skies. Vader's Wrath. The final showdown in the skies above Coruscant erupts with an intensity that shakes the very foundations of the galactic capital. Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Chewbacca, and their allies barely escaped the clutches of Prince Xizor thanks to a seemingly impossible rescue. Lando Calrissian, along with smuggler Dash Rendar, appears at the last second, just as Black Sun's forces surround the heroes in Xizor's massive palace. The shadows of bounty hunters, mercenaries, and assassin droids seem to close in around them, but the appearance of Dash and Lando turns the tide. Aboard the Millennium Falcon and the Space Rider, Luke and his team manage to lift off. But the battle is far from over. Black Sun, wounded but not defeated, unleashes his fleet against the rebels, beginning a deadly chase between the towering spires of Coruscant. The planet's labyrinthine alleys and endless traffic offer a battlefield as dangerous as any open field. Luke, intent on keeping his team safe, allows the Force to guide him. But even he knows that facing Xizor's criminal fleet on these terms is nigh on suicidal. At every turn, every evasive maneuver, an enemy fighter or piece of debris threatens to destroy them. From his tower atop the palace, Xizor watches with cold satisfaction. He believes victory is at hand, that he has cornered his enemies, and that the Falcon has no way out. The arrogance that defines him makes him blind to what is to come. Xizor has underestimated the influence of the dark side, has ignored the true threat that has always loomed over him. Darth Vader. Without warning, the Imperial fleet bursts into battle, led by the destroyer Executor. Vader has decided to act, and not with mercy. The Emperor has made it clear that Xizor was expendable, and Vader, with characteristic impassiveness, has taken that signal as authorization to eliminate the Dark Prince once and for all. The Imperial ships strike with lethal precision, relentlessly bombarding Black Sun's forces. To Xizor, Vader's betrayal is a direct stab in the back, a brutal reminder that in the Empire's great power game, there is room only for the strongest. From the cockpit of the Falcon, Luke and Leia watch as the situation takes an unexpected turn. The TIE fighters, which at first seemed to reinforce their enemies, now turn against them. Luke senses the disturbance in the Force. Vader is here. Despite the confusion, he understands that Vader is not there to help him, but to destroy Xizor, and any chance of escape becomes even more fragile. Xizor, furious and desperate, tries to communicate with Vader, demanding an explanation. Vader's image appears on his screen, cold and emotionless as always. "You have 2 minutes to surrender," Vader tells him, his tone making it clear that he has already made his decision. Xizor, in his fury, refuses to budge. He thinks he can find a way out, that his power and resources can save him from this disaster. But he is wrong. Xizor's final seconds tick away as he watches helplessly as his fleet is destroyed. In a final act of desperation, he attempts to flee his palace, but it is too late. The Executor launches a devastating bombardment that reduces the palace to rubble. The structure, once a symbol of his criminal rule, erupts in a storm of fire and metal. Xizor, stripped of his empire, understands in those final moments that he has underestimated not only Vader, but Luke, the rebellion, and most of all, the ruthless nature of power in the Empire. The Millennium Falcon and Space Rider maneuver through the wreckage of the explosion, dodging the fiery debris. Luke, letting the Force guide his every move, senses Xizor's death as a dark ripple in the Force. Despite the destruction and chaos around them, there is a glimmer of victory. Xizor has fallen, and Black Sun is destroyed. But Luke knows there is no time to celebrate. As the rebel ships race away from the disaster, Luke knows the war is far from over. The shadow of Darth Vader still looms large, and though Xizor is no longer a threat, the danger posed by the Empire remains as present as ever. Part 1. Ashes of the Empire. The darkness lingers. Xizor, the Dark Prince, dies, consumed by his own ambition, as his criminal empire, Black Sun, crumbles in an eruption of fire and rubble. From his tower, the proud leader watches as his palace, a fortress that symbolizes power, turns into a pile of smoldering ruins. The flames devour his legacy, and with it, everything he had built over the years. His blackmail archives, priceless secrets, and the very foundation of his rule. Black Sun, the largest criminal empire in the galaxy, has fallen, and Xizor, the calculating predator, meets his end in the flames he himself stoked by playing on the edge. But Xizor's death, though it marks the end of a chapter, does not bring the relief that Luke, Leia, and their allies had hoped for. Han Solo remains a prisoner of Jabba the Hutt, frozen in carbonite, out of reach and beyond immediate rescue. The weight of this defeat looms large in victory, though tangible, tastes bitter. The team has emerged alive from one of the most dangerous confrontations they have ever faced, but the price of that survival is high, and the future uncertain. Luke, though he has escaped Xizor's clutches, is more tormented than ever. The revelation that Darth Vader is his father has taken root in his mind, and the shadow of the dark side haunts him constantly. The temptation to give in to that darkness, to embrace the destiny his lineage offers him, is ever present. With each passing day, Luke feels the internal struggle to stay on the light side of the Force grow more intense, like a fog that never clears. Vader's voice, whispering in his mind, pushes him to consider it inevitable. If he fails, if he succumbs, the galaxy will lose not only a hero, but the very hope of stopping the Empire. On the other side of the conflict, Vader returns to his master, Emperor Palpatine. He knows he has won an important battle by eliminating Xizor, a dangerous rival who had dared to try to manipulate him. But this victory does not fill the emptiness he feels inside. For Vader, the main conflict has not yet begun. The war for the soul of his son, Luke Skywalker, is the only thing that really matters. The Emperor, for his part, looks on with satisfaction, his face haggard from the dark side, sketching a sinister smile. He knows that the threads he has woven are moving towards their final outcome. Luke is the key piece, and the time to catch him in his web is getting closer. Palpatine watches Vader, knowing that both are engaged in a game of loyalties and betrayals that could decide the fate of the entire galaxy. The destruction of Black Sun has left a void in the galaxy's underworld. Criminal syndicates once ruled with an iron fist by Xizor are now at war with one another, seeking to fill the power vacuum left by his fall. The galaxy, already on the brink of collapse from the war between the Empire and the Rebellion, now faces a new wave of chaos and violence. And though the heroes have survived this chapter, they know the worst is yet to come. Get the book at planetalibro.com.